Ni, and the Abine Shivai, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past, present, promoting the wide stewardship of lands in which we live in. Are there any declarations of interest?
No.
Okay, seeing as there are none, we're going to adopt the minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? We have a mover, Marcia, and seconded by Bob. All right. All in favor?
Favor.
All right. Okay. So can we adopt the minutes from September 1st, 2023? So I'll call for a mover. Yep, Jeff and Bob seconded, and all in favor? All right. Pass. All right. So first thing on our correspondence, item 6.1 is a resignation. Sadly, we received a resignation from Tony Vandermaas from our committee. I guess those who know him, he's resigning from some other committees as well. Item 6.2, we have CLK-C 76-2023. We've received the motion from Lake Gibson Corridor Subcommittee. Is there any discussion or questions about the motion? I'm going to look to you, Mr. Clerk, for what is the motion from the Lake Gibson Subcommittee?
Yeah, I will just bring that up for you right now. So essentially, as they are subcommittee of Parks, Trails and Recreation, at their meeting on September 13th, the Lake Gibson Corridor Subcommittee did pass a motion looking to direct staff to conduct a request for proposals for the mapping of the Lake Gibson Corridor. This is part of an overall strategic plan to sort of come up with what do they want to do with the territory, and a big part of that is mapping it. They're not sure exactly what that will entail at present, and it'll be part of the RFP process, but the planning department does have budget set aside that can be used for part of this mapping. So they'd be using a portion of that $150,000 set aside to do some of that work. And it would include everything from looking at the Lake Gibson watershed area. Where are there trails? Where are there parks? Where could there be future areas for such development and use? And really, as a subcommittee, it comes back through Parks, Trails and Recreation on its way to council for approval. Staff are supportive of this and again, have room in the planning budget to accommodate it. At this point, if anyone from Parks, Trails and Recreation have any comments or anything that they would like to add, what will happen is we will take those comments along with anything provided by the subcommittee and put that in a memo to council, which will go to council on October 24th for the review of using the portion of this budget for this purpose. So at this time, Mr. Chair, it'd really be up to you if any members of the committee have anything they would like to add to the review of this process, and or something that they would specifically like to highlight for the planning department in terms of using this and or creating this map.
Nothing for me other than, can you share the mapping with us when it's complete? I wouldn't mind knowing who owns what and what's sort of going on back in there, because it's a sort of uncharted territory in Thorold. But
Absolutely, and anything that results from this as a subcommittee will come back through Parks, Trails and Rec on its way to council anyway.
okay, and what about with the planning portion of that? Once they do the mapping and they find out what's what, how does that sort of process begin with what they're going to do with the lands? Like,
so I think that depends overall on what they want to recommend back to council. Again, a great deal of this is watershed. So I think some of what they're looking to do is where can we identify new areas for protection, whether that's conservation, whether that's parkland, whether that's trails, certainly noting things that already exist and perhaps the potential for future development of any of these things, which again, once you see the mapping, it might be a great opportunity for this committee to then provide their comments there as well.
That's kind of what I was getting to. I just didn't know if they actually had a plan already in place. They were just trying to figure out, they're just trying to get approval for things, but I see
Nope,
Joe
still-
has a question.
I've been on the Lake Gibson committee in various iterations for a long time. As far as who owns what, you got OPG, you got Bell, you got the Seaway, you got some private areas, and even a couple of chunks that the city owns. Something came up in our last meeting where they were trying to decide. Well, a decision was trying to be made. What do we want to map? We basically decided we're not going to talk about drainage basins for openers. We're going to talk about practical, what lies within what might someday be a park. And on that note, not really my place to issue invites, but we're going to be doing a walk on the 11th, starting at about 5 o'clock, starting from TQ House, just to walk around at least part of it. We're supposedly going to have some city staff with us too, just if anybody wants to drop in. Tony Vandermaas is the real contact for that.
What time is that at? Just
I believe it's at, I believe we decided we were going to start at 5. That was left a little bit loosey-goosey. And I'm expecting an email of some sort between now and the 11th.
okay. It might be dark by
Well,
when
that
you
was
start
the kicker.
getting walking out there,
That-
right?
that-
It's
That was the kicker, I mean, you got, you start at 5, you got maybe 2 hours, and you're not going to get an awful lot around an awful lot of the park or the potential park in 2 hours.
unless you're looking for a little white ball.
Yeah. So there was some talk about starting it earlier, but staff couldn't necessarily make it out before then. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll contact Tony, find out, between now and then. I know it's, 10 days from now, no, 9 days from now. But I'll put out a general, with his permission, him being the chair.
Yeah.
I'll put out a general email to this group, and if anybody wants to attend, they're welcome. Really, the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, okay. I'm done with that. Thanks.
Is there anyone else have any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, it's Ken.
I can.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks.
I think, Joe, one of our things on council has been trying to get in the Black Act is that beautiful land that there's a fence up on the side of Lake Gibson there, and try and get that fence down so we can use it as a park. So I think for me, that's a big part of it, I believe, right, Joe?
Yeah, we've been wanting the anti-terrorist fence to come down ever since shortly after 9/11.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of a silly fence in some respects. I mean, I can understand them wanting to protect the water supply, but it doesn't need to go there. That,
right.
As I'm sure you
It's
agree.
it's a beautiful spot. I just wanted to throw that in. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, if there's anything else, I'm going to move on to the next one, number 7, selection of a vice chair. So I'm going to pass the next part over to our city clerk here, to Matthew.
Yeah, no problem, Mr. Chair. So we do have the position of committee vice chair vacant. So at this time, I'm really just opening a call for nominations for vice chair. I would need a mover and a seconder for each nomination. So do I have a mover to nominate somebody for vice chair? Kieran?
No, yeah, it's a mover. Can we nominate somebody?
That's correct. So
Okay.
we're looking for a mover and seconder to nominate someone.
Okay, I'll second it.
Do I have a mover? Marcia? We need a name. Who are we nominating?
Oh, I was going to nominate Ian Woods.
Ian. Okay, perfect.
I know he's not here, but I did mention
I know he expressed interest in it ahead of time, and I think he's just
Okay.
logging in at present.
he's at
Yep,
the
he
school. He's
is.
at the school council with my wife. My wife's at the school council now, so that's where they are.
He's just joining us now as a panelist. Okay, so I have moved by Marcia, seconded by Chair Daniels. For Ian Woods as vice chair. Ian, if you can hear me, you've just been nominated for vice chair. Please let me know if you have any concerns with that. I will do a second call though for any nominations for the position of vice chair. Joe?
Yeah, move to close nominations.
Perfect.
Have a seconder?
I see Marcia. All those in favor? That's to close nominations. Thank you. Okay, there being only one nomination, Ian, congratulations. You've been appointed the vice chair of the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, that being complete, I will hand the chair back to Chair Daniels for committee business.
All right. So again, the committee business 8.1, we have the website enhancement working group. I'll leave it open to Ian and Jeff here if they want to take the floor. Any questions, comments, anything they want to bring up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you'll recall at our last meeting, we shared with you our report and recommendations and encouraged you to have a look at it over the course of the ensuing weeks. And Ian and I received very little feedback. The feedback I received was just general positive good work. But if people have any feedback they'd like to share now, that would be welcome and appreciated. And if not, then we'll put forth a motion for endorsement. So that would be the first step. Does anybody have any late breaking feedback to share?
Nothing here.
Okay. In that case, I would like to put forth the motion that PTRC endorse the report and its recommendations of the website enhancement working group. And further to that, that these recommendations and the accompanying report are shared with City Council with the purpose of directing city staff to review and action recommendations as deemed feasible.
Second?
Yeah, I'll move it. I'll move that. And
Second.
seconder? Joe? All right. And all in favor?
Favor.
That'll pass. Yep. All right. Good job. Good job, guys, with the website enhancement. Next on the list, we have 8.2. We have Sullivan Park upgrades.
You may have to be quiet now.
So did anyone have a chance to attend the PIC that was held, I believe it was last Tuesday. It was last Tuesday. I know, Bob, does anyone want to speak to Sullivan Park upgrades?
I had a chance to visit them at City Hall the other day. And they told me that the project is only going to be upgrading the playground and the splash pad. That's the entire budget. That's all it's for. So the original playground that's there, including the swings and the monkey bars, will be removed, as well as the existing splash pad would be, and my guess would be demolished, and then they would reinstall a newer version with different features. That's basically all they really had to say. So me and another resident who also is part of like the school council, so I knew her, We left some comments and some ideas in place that if we're going to be upgrading parks, we should really think about the different type of generations that attend it. Based on my knowledge of asset management, when you design a park and when you redo a park, a playground itself gets attached a 25-year life cycle. So if you're putting in a new playground and it's got a 25-year life cycle, a normal person would assume you're not going to touch it again for 25 years. So I think the question we really have to ask is, if we're redoing parks, what are we putting in place for 25 years? If someone's born today, at 25, you can have a 1 to 2 year old kid, and you're going to go back to the same park that was installed when you were a baby. It wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense because it'd be dilapidated. The paint would be gone. I mean, like I know we have maintenance standards, but I'd like to see a difference in what we're actually putting in our parks in Thorold. So I left that with them, and we'll see where it comes. But I think they're going to their consultant next, so we'll see what happens.
To you, Mr. Clerk, do these plans, once finalized and approved, do they come back to our committee, or do they just get pushed in and then they're done?
I'll see if oh, there we go. Dave Baldoni is online. He can perhaps address that question.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Through you, Mr. Chair. So I was at the PIC for the first portion of the meeting. So as everyone knows, we're in the preliminary stages of the planning process. I'm not sure if the budget is going to cover the replacement of the splash pad. I know the parks that we've recently put in, Merritt Meadows and sort of the south end of Thorold, the southwest of Thorold of 406. The playgrounds with the soft landings have come in around just shy of $400,000. So that being said, I'm not sure how far the rest of that budget is going to take us with a splash pad. So we'll take all the comments made by attendees to the PIC. We'll host another PIC with some conceptual drawings and then present those to whoever wants to attend that PIC, which is slated for I want to say the third week of October. That date will be posted on the city's website.
Okay. I see, Ian, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak on that because knowing that the budget is roughly around 400,000, when I found out that the park was being redone, I took a look at it, and they have it outlined as the entire park, right? So when you first take a look at it, you're thinking the entire park, which includes the baseball diamond, is going to be redone. So that's where I had questions about, like, what is the budget, what's going to be done, because that's quite a lot of difference. So if you're spending $400,000 just to put in a playground, we need to put in better playgrounds than what we're doing. We go to Beaver Dams Park, we go to Merritt Meadows Park. They're just, in my opinion, they're rinky dinky. There's no real swings there. There's no real monkey bars there. The slides are made of a plastic material that cuts down the friction, so the kids don't even enjoy them. I've got two of my own. We go there all the time, and the only thing they want is the zip line that's at the Rolling Meadows. So, like, we should be polling our kindergartens and find out, what do you want in a park before we start building new parks? If they're the ones that are taking it, why not use that demographic? But in speaking to this, when I found out this park was being done, I Googled, and I was finding out, like, what are other cities doing for their parks? A company called Earthscape has worked with various municipalities throughout, like, Ontario, BC, and Canada-wide. They've won awards and everything, and they offer set base minimum standards where they can design and construct and build the parks for us that have a better opportunity based on what you actually need. You're not going to get the soft, you might not get the soft structure playground that everyone wants, but you're going to get a custom built playground that is built for your community and what you actually want. So I think we need to explore those options, and so that we're not just copy and pasting playgrounds for every single park. Considering we're going to have a 2-minute walk, the exact same play structure at Beaver Dams Park, we might as well put something different there.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else agrees with that.
I tend to agree with you. I'm going to leave it to George here, Go ahead, George.
Yeah, just a question for you, Mr. Chair, to Dave. Dave, if the budget is only 400,000 and the playground equipment looks like it's going to cost 400,000 to replace, is the splash pad that's currently there going to be left in place? Because it would be kind of sad, given the hot summers that we have, that there's not going to be a splash pad in the parks. Just if you don't know, that's fine. If you do know, that'd be great.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The budget is greater than $400,000. The cost of the playground, the ones that we've recently put in place, come in around that mark. So there is some wiggle room. To answer your question, that splash pad will remain in place. That will not be touched.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to build a little bit on Ian's comment there about park planning. I mean, if we're kind of faced with a budget crunch this year, and you have these companies that can do designs, would it be possible to have a company design it so that there can be an addition to it without having to tear it down, so that if we can only do part A this year and then part B next year, so that the park gets bigger. So like Ian said, it's not a rinky-dink thing, so that we kind of look into the future, so that the park is more attractive to more children.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's always an option to be considered. That's a large green space that we do have there, Sullivan Park. We can by all means start moderately and add in the future as funds are granted.
Bob.
Yeah, just like to ask the question of either Councillor Senates can answer it or Mr. Baldoni, is that what role is the Parks, Recreation and Trails Committee playing with regards to these renovations at Sullivan Park? Or are we just going to basically hear about the results and just, oh, okay, great, and then we just carry on? Or are we going to have any actual good input to this?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. And that's why we're hosting PICs. Everyone's more than welcome and encouraged to come out and express your opinions and see what you'd like to see. Mention what you'd like to see in the parks.
Matthew, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just through you to the committee, to that question as well. If you as a committee do have advice and recommendations that you want back to staff, you can do so through these minutes. So if there's something specific you'd like noted, you can do so through a motion back to staff. You're looking to direct staff to look into something. If you have larger motions that end up involving spend or money or other issues, those go to council first for council's approval as it's there, but your role really is to advise council on these matters. So if you do have specific concerns or questions or directions through your motions, you provide that to council for them to consider along with these decisions. So, you know, whether some of these will come back through the committee on their way to council, some of them end up direct to council depending on the matter itself. In all situations, the committee has the ability to provide formal responses and correspondence back to council to provide that advice.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Seeing I see Mr. Woods has just shared a link through our chat. So this is towards that Earthscape group that you were talking about. Would it be acceptable for us to make a motion and have council direct city staff to look at this website and compare, do something not equivalent, but at least bring it up into the discussion?
Things we just have to be thoughtful of as well, Mr.
Right.
Chair, is
Understood.
obviously issues of procurement do come into play. So depending on the rules, the size, what's being purchased and done, procurement rules, whether you have to do a request for proposal or otherwise, again, without knowing the specific scenario,
Mhm.
will come into play. So staff may not be free to just merely go with a specific group or organization. That being said, whether or not you need council's motion, having an example like this and highlighting it for staff in the minutes is something that we can do. And it's something that staff can kind of look into through the general process of continuing with this. And to Mr. Baldoni's point, raising questions like this through the PIC is also an excellent way to highlight these questions or issues for staff.
When something's highlighted at a PIC meeting, does it take more than one person to address the same thing for staff to look at it? Like where in our committee here, it would just take one of us to make a motion, and then it would have to be addressed by the council. So is to you, Mr. Chair. So is there like when something like this is brought up at a PIC, does it have to be brought up more than once for a city to consider looking at it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the clerk's office isn't always involved in the PIC, so I'd have to refer that back to Dave and his staff. But I do know that comments are collected and brought together as part of the overall consideration as they move through the various phases of these projects.
Okay. Ian, did you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I just kind of had a question, like knowing that this is a project through the city, is it a capital project that is done through the tendering process? Because then, that determines like how you actually approve it. Because I know you can single source through a company, but it all depends on the price of the project itself. So if your budget is over that amount and it's a capital project, then it is set to whoever bids on it, and then it's just sole sourced for the playground. So if we're putting this out as a tender and someone just says, hey, I'll do it for 400 grand, the only thing the city can do is say, okay, we have a limit of this is the type of structure we need, and it gets built based on that subject. But I would like to see us be more present about what we're installing and be mindful of that, because what I'm seeing is like we're just kind of like, okay, there's parks available, there's playground structures available, everyone wants this rubber floor surface, let's just do that and be done with it. And then 25 years passes along and it's old. Like I go to McMillan Park all the time over here by my house, and it's an old playground. You can see some of the places don't work anymore. You can just see like the colorways are all gone. The only benefit is I have an older playground, so I have the big swings that my kids really enjoy. So like I know that based on the demographics I see at the parks, we really need to make sure we're putting in what people want to use. And it's just the different side, like small kids, medium kids, teenagers. What are there's adults at the park. What are they going to do? So are we like
Swings.
whole bunch of stuff, swings, and I put a comment in at the PIC meet drop in there. It was like we should put in like the outdoor workout stations that are around, especially if Thorold is trying to become this connected community. We're building in these new what are they called, the pathways down Town Line Road. Eventually that's going to connect all of Thorold, so why not make our parks point places? We only have a select few in our downtown major core area. We might as well connect them together so that we have a place to go and visit. And it just makes it easier, because when I'm walking, if I walk over to Sullivan Park, I got to walk down the busy areas of the street on a 1.5 meter sidewalk instead of the 2 meter sidewalk. So it's a little bit smaller, and we need to make sure we're putting in the right things.
All right. Thanks, Ian. Do you have any more comment on this?
At this point, not really. It's really just based on what the city does, but I think Dave put his hand up. So.
Yeah, I see Dave with your hand up there.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. These are all great recommendations. I'd love to see everyone come out, share their comments. Ian, great comments about, hosting some adult sort of workout space. Niagara Falls has them. I think they're brilliant. I think Thorold needs one, and I think that should be come through a recommendation from this committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So do we have any recommendations that we want to make to council? Or are we going to leave this point mute until the next PIC and discuss after?
If I can just, thank you, Chair. I think if we wait until, because right now it's not being issued to tender, like it's got to go through another PIC meeting. So I think if we wait till then, we can put a motion into city council to look at it then, and that gives kind of everyone to take an idea of like what do they want in a park and bring back like a point or two, and then that way we can discuss it further.
I see at this time of year too, it doesn't look like they're going to be breaking ground anytime soon to be scheduled to start building this. So
yeah, they said it was not till like next summer anyway.
right. So it's nice to have this conversation now and not, April.
Mhm.
But okay, I'm going to move on to the next point here, which is was brought to me by a community member, and it's the Niagara Special Olympics. So the Special Olympics here, it's for the Niagara qualifiers. It's going to be through the whole school year for kids, and they need someone to host the floorball event, which is Thursday, April 11th, 2023. I wanted to make a recommendation that we go to council and we ask for this recommendation. I don't see why Thorold Secondary School is hosting the basketball event. I think Niagara United is hosting another event, and a few are done virtually. But the floorball is looking for a place to do it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Marcia, but when does the ice come out at the Frank Doherty at the end of this season?
You would want to ask Dave that question, as he
Dave?
was in charge of removing it.
Okay, sorry, Dave. I thought you might know, Marcia. Dave?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So we are entertaining a U18 team this year. It all depends on their success. Will dictate when the ice comes out. Normally, it's out by first week of April. Again, we didn't host a U18 team or a junior B team this year, so
yeah,
that normally dictates when the ice comes out.
Okay, something to keep in mind. I mean, I think it'd be a great idea for the city. I mean, there is the Walker Sports and Ability Center as well, but I mean, they don't have boards and stuff. So other than when that rink becomes transitioning to a lacrosse, a turf field. So, I mean, we do have a couple available options. It seems right in that timeline too, the second week of April, which seems to be the transition from turf to ice to turf. So maybe it's something we just put on the shelf now and we hold on to it, or we can't really make a motion on it at this point in time just because of not knowing dates and when that's going to happen. So how close would we need to know, Dave, before we actually approach council with this?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The Walker Sports and Ability Center last year, if I remember correctly, and maybe Jacob might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, one of their ice pads came out March 31st, and I think the second one stayed in for the month of April. So if Jacob has had talks with Canada Games Park, he may have some more clarity on if they're looking to remove their ice again, same time in one pad and keeping one pad with ice.
Yeah,
Thank
that would
you.
be
Yes, that does sound correct. The timeline Dave had mentioned there.
Okay, then can we, so to you, Mr. Clerk, do we make that direction towards to have Jacob sort of coordinate that, or do we have to go through council for some sort of approval for that?
Mr. Chair, perhaps Dave or Jacob can add in on this, but presuming we offer up space for this event, that does come at a cost, even if it's in kind, for staff to be involved. So we would want council sort of endorsement or direction back to staff to prepare for that, or at least include it in the 2024, budget considerations. So perhaps it's direction back to staff to look into what that might be and report back in the future with any associated costs that may come with that. And then if we get a timeline from the organizing committee or group as to when they would need to know, that can be just forwarded to staff so that we can be aware of when council would need to make an official decision on approving this or not.
That sounds good to me. I mean, can we put that into a motion and then vote on it?
So this would merely be direction to staff to consider this and report back with any associated costs.
Yeah.
And then again, as long as we find out when does a decision need to be made, and to Dave's point, whether or not that's feasible within timelines for hockey and ice and et cetera.
Okay, no, that sounds, I mean, I see Joe with your hand.
Excuse me. I'd support the motion, but I'd also like to add to it that perhaps staff could contact other partners in the
The consortium.
might be involved with that particular arena and see if they're willing to
Split.
yeah, well, co-sponsor.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Joe. I like your addition. Is there anyone else want to add to the motion, or does anyone want to comment on it or anything, or do you want to just? And so,
Put my hand up. I'll comment. I think that's an amazing idea. I think it would garner a lot of attention if we could host something like that. And like even if the city of Thorold is a part of it, even if they don't like host it and incur the costs, and like Brock or St. Catharines uses the Canada Games, their options here. If we can say like, put our hands up and be like, come here and we'll support you. I think that is going to be beneficial to our community. So I think we should be doing that no matter what.
Yeah. So
I think if we put a motion in, and let's do it now so we're all talking about it.
yeah, I like your thinking, Ian. And two, again, this just opens the door. This is the Niagara Special Olympics. Maybe it opens the door to something bigger. Like we have one of the only facilities in all of Canada that can actually host this sort of like games once they're up and going and real. So yeah, I like the add to it. So can we put that motion on the floor?
Move it.
Mover and a seconder. I see Marcia and Rich, and we'll vote. All in favor?
Favor.
Oppose? Okay, that's passed. All right. So roundtable discussion. I have one item through you, Mr. Clerk, to Dave. What's the opening date for Frank Doherty Arena?
To Mr. Chair, to the committee, the opening date is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So we are slated for the first skate of the season, October 10th.
October 10th?
Yes, Tuesday, October the 10th.
Okay. That was one thing that I really had. Is there anyone else have anything else for the roundtable discussion? Bob.
Well, this might be a little bit off topic, but I guess it could fall underneath recreation. What's the situation with the Santa Claus parade? Dave, you got any
Dave?
input on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that we're hosting a community events advisory committee for the Santa Claus parade. Marcia, are you part of the community events advisory committee?
I'm part of everything. I don't know, just
That's
tell me
right.
when I gotta show up.
That's right. Fantastic. So those discussions will be held during that committee meeting.
Okay. I had something maybe a little off topic too, I guess, in that regard. The one thing I noticed, because like my daughter plays hockey and she plays out in the 4-pad, and I'm always taking DQ Road, the newly restorated frog pond. Who maintains the grass on the outside of the frog pond? Like, we put all those big, huge, nice boulders, and it looked beautiful for like one side. You drive by now and it's just like all the trees are dead, the grass is growing, the weeds are growing over top of the boulders. You can't see them anymore. I know you don't want to go inside there because you don't want to disrupt the habitat because you're trying to restore, but who upkeeps the grass around it? I just had that question.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that's designed as a natural habitat. So at the moment, there's still works being done in there. We've replanted some of the white pines. We replaced some of the trees and shrubs that were in there.
Mhm.
So at the moment, that's going to be a naturalized space for the frogs to.
No, I understand inside it, but up to the barrier, because you cut the grass up to you get on the riding mower, right? And you drive the riding mower along the boulevard, and then you have the big stone there, and there's about, I don't know, about this much room of just the weeds just growing straight up over top of those big rocks. Or like, wouldn't someone weed eat those around?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So a portion of that is done by the roads department, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a portion of that land is regional with their pumping station. So I'd have to look in.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
I'd
so
have to-
it's hard for me to explain, to think that if like because someone's already cutting it, right? Like the grass is low, it's just not being finished. That's all.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. So like I said, a portion of that is done by the region. I'm not sure what their care and maintenance levels or standards look like. And a portion is done by the city with some sort of bush hog equipment, so.
Okay. All right, that was my only thing. I just wasn't sure who was responsible for the care of the land there, just because the stones, it was nice. It was driving by there for hockey and stuff. You'd see those big, huge, nice stones, and now it's just, you don't see them anymore. But okay, is there any other discussions? I see Joe with your hand up.
Just a small aside on, with what you were just talking about. With that big hole that they've got dug just a couple 100 meters away and very little rain, that frog pond's not going to be a pond, at least this season. I don't think. There's it looks like a drainage pond that's, or flood abatement pond or whatever. Just trying to, you can see it driving down to Kew.
Yeah, I know. It's not. You would think it was a stormwater management pond, but that's incorrect in thinking that, because it just looks like that's the lowest part of the land within that plot of area, and so that's just where the water's coming up at that point.
Okay, but it does look like it's about 20 feet below our pond. So anyway, that's just a comment. I have no idea what to do about it. It's anyway.
All right. Do you have any other comments, questions? All right. Seeing that there's none, the next meeting will be held up on November 6th, 2023. And if there's no further business, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Do I have a mover and a seconder? All in favor?
You don't need a seconder.
I'm just saying. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
I'm getting them tomorrow, Kenny. Bye.
Bye.